But next week will be very interesting as well, starting on Monday the 17th, when FMDQ OTC Securities Exchange admits the first ever infrastructure bond promoted and packaged by Chapel Hill Denham Management. And we have the managing director of that organization, that investment bank, live in the studios to kick it off before Monday so that you have some things to chew over. Ononuju Iroko is the CEO and she's live here with me. Good morning, madam.
Good morning.
It's good to see you and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is big. This is a lot of money. But let's piggyback a little bit about the processes that leads to Chapel Hill Denham saying, look, we need to float an infrastructure bond. What's the rationale behind it?
Okay. All right. First, let me just talk about Chapel Hill Denham. Okay, we're an old asset management firm, Chapel Hill Denham Management, and what we do is we've been on since 1994. We started out as Denham Management, and we manage 3 of Nigeria's mutual funds today. One of the oldest is the Paramount Equity Fund, which we launched sometime in 1991. And so we've been in the business for a very long time. However, as part of our strategic growth, right, we felt that we needed to begin to diversify our holdings or our fund management expertise into alternative investments. And so we took a look at the general economic space, and we decided that infrastructure is something that's very key to Nigeria. You and I know that Nigeria has a huge infrastructure deficit, and you and I know that Nigeria has a huge infrastructure deficit, and we felt that for us to be able to bridge that gap, right, there would need to be funds made available to both project sponsors, possibly to the banks who lend out, and generally within that sector, so that there will be access, right, for the sponsors to execute the projects. Now, 2 things that we've realized is that having funds available in foreign currency is a bit of a challenge, because then if, like in a country in Nigeria, you have exposure to currency risk or exchange rate risk, then there's a problem. If you borrowed 100 million 10 years ago, it's definitely not the same value in Naira today. And so we felt that domestic currency would be the best way to begin to make these funds available even to the project sponsors. So 2 things that have then fueled our decision or our intent to launch this fund is, 1, the dearth in availability of funding, and the fact that there are no local currency funds. The third thing is there's got to be long-term patient funding available. And so this fund is willing to provide access to funds for like 7 to 15 years or even longer. Now, you and I both know that it takes a while to build a road, to build a bridge, to build anything that's going to be long-lasting. And so that's one of the reasons why we've decided to keep this as a debt fund rather than an equity or a bond fund. It's set up as a mutual fund, right, to provide funds to project sponsors and to others who are in the infrastructure space. So that's really the thinking behind it. We believe that even with regulation now, we believe that there's going to be a lot of interest in that area, because investors are looking for alternative investments, right? They're looking for other asset classes in which they will put in their funds. Not everyone just wants to put funds in FGN treasury bills or in bonds or in equities. And so we provide that asset class right now.
Okay. A very interesting picture you've painted about the road to this. But again, a few days ago, about a week ago, there was this announcement in the newspapers regarding the first a set of these we understand it's about 100 billion naira in total, but the first set of subscription was approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and that was announced in the newspapers, as it were. So take us through this process. Who were part of this first, and how much was raised, really?
Okay, first it's a fund. It's not a bond, okay? And so what we've done is we're trying to raise a series of up to 200 billion, okay? But we're going to do it in stages, in programs. And so this first one, right, we've raised about 5 billion, and it's comprised really of institutional investors and a few high net worth individuals. We have about 8 of the pension fund administrators invested in it. We have investors from the insurance company. We have high net worth individuals, and of course us as fund managers have to put in a seed, and so we're invested in it. So I think it's got a variety of investors who are very interested in it, and it tells us that the market is really quite ready for this kind of asset class, like I said earlier on.
How much is this? Interesting. How much is this bond? How much is this fund? Mutual fund will be paying?
Well, what we've tried to do right now is to ensure that the loans that we access or the loans that we book from the fund will pay at least 400 basis points above an FGN bond. And so let's say an FGN bond today is going at about 15.75 or 16. It means the fund will pay at least 19.75 or 20%.
Ooh, now this is some good money. What's the tenor you're looking at here? And the natural question is how would you be deploying?
Okay. All right. As it is, we've already deployed well over 80 or 90% of the fund because, like I said, the market is ready for this.
Really?
Yes, we already have. And so what's happened is the kind of projects, right, we're thinking of sponsoring are anything in utilities, roads, power, car parks, right? You know, anything really that will enhance the infrastructural, the infrastructure of any city or any country. Those are the kind of projects we want to invest in. And right now we have a pipeline, you know, and so very soon we'll be coming back to the market to raise some more of the funds because we have people who are off-takers who are very willing to take these funds from us. Right?
I want you to include me in the pipeline.
Well, then I will ask you to please go and build a bridge. Maybe one from Ijebu-Ode to Lokoja.
How did you get it? I'm just around Kogi State. So I'm going to just ask you to do that. I want to be in the pipeline. But again, in terms of the pipeline of projects, of course, this is money. Nigeria is one huge ground that needs a lot of infrastructure activity taking place. So where are you deploying first? Okay, that's why I want to be in the pipeline. And you know my natural question, don't you? Yes, you do.
Okay,
yes, you do. So where is that? It's Lagos, isn't it?
Well, the fund is a Nigeria fund. Okay, and so our projects will cut across everywhere. Of course, we had that question, you know, do you have geopolitical
leanings?
Well, it's a Nigeria fund, and we will go where there's a viable project. We will not do projects based on geopolitical zoning. Rather, we'll go on where it's viable because we've taken funds from investors. We have investors who we report to, and the fund has a very, very strong governance structure, you know, which ensures that we're not just taking investors' funds and investing them in projects of our friends or our country or our tribal mates. No, what we want to do here is ensure that they're viable projects, right? We ensure the returns that we've promised our customers are there, and that this is a legacy fund that we're putting forth for Nigeria. We're sure that we won't be the only ones, right? What we've just done is gone ahead, and very soon there will be other asset classes that will come in. And so if we don't do this right, then we close up the pipeline for others to come in and invest. So it's Nigeria, there's Lagos, there's Ogun State, there's Lokoja, there's Abuja, there's the Northeast. So long as it's a viable project, we will invest in it.
So you do believe that there are bankable infrastructure projects in Nigeria? It's always been part of the conversation that most of the infrastructure and projects are not bankable, so investors are not going to are not coming in, whether they are local or even foreign, because once they're looking in, they say, oh, it's not bankable, we're not going to touch it. How do you arrive at what's bankable?
Okay, what's bankable is what has a determined and assured cash flow. Okay, because really for every loan that you give, what determines its viability is the cash flow. I'm sure you drive on the Lekki-Ikoyi Bridge. All right. Now that's a good infrastructure, right? Not only has it opened up Lekki and Ikoyi, right? It's provided jobs and it's added to the beauty of Lagos State, if nothing else. And so those are the kind of factors that we look out for. One, the cash flow is assured, and so we want to see projects in power. Right, because power is a huge need here in Nigeria. We want to see projects in power. We want to see projects, roads and bridges, etc. We want to see car parks, because within Lagos Island or anywhere, Victoria Island, parking is an issue. So those things that we believe, right, and we can see from the financial projections that have assured cash flows are things that we'll be very willing to invest in.
Let's get back a little bit to the governance issue. I'm sure before you roll things out like this, the SEC must have looked through all your papers and asked a lot of questions about what are your management fees, what's the structures behind it, who is going to be who are the trustees, if there's a need, and things like that. Walk us through that.
Okay, all right then. So this is a typical, like I said, it's a typical mutual fund, and so we've gone through the SEC approval. We're also approved by PENCOM because we wanted the pension fund administrators to invest in it. And so we've been through a very rigorous process. But beyond that, the structure of the fund is we have two trustees, Stanbic IBTC and STL trustees, right? We have reporting accountants, we have auditors. We worked with two of Nigeria's finest law firms, even in constructing all of the prospectus, the trust deeds, etc. But beyond that, the fund has an investment committee. Okay, and the investment committee is made up of 5 members. One of them is independent, who is ex-IFC, and he led a lot of the infrastructure investments for IFC in Europe, in the Middle East. And then the CEO of the fund also is an ex-IFC staff who was instrumental to a lot of the infrastructure development and funding that was deployed in India and the Middle East. So we've gone out of our way to ensure we've brought in expertise, because we want to do this right. Now, after the investment committee, we also have an advisory board, and the advisory board is made up of the investors in the fund who will sit more like or possibly like a board of directors to ensure that the investments that we're running and the governance structures are properly adhered to. Don't forget that we're also the fund manager and we have a board, and so that also adds one more level of coverage for it. What we've tried to do is put in I don't want to say watertight, but a very strong governance structure. So we present a front that's serious, and everyone who sees us understands that we're in this for the long haul, and we want to ensure that we do this right, because it's the first in Nigeria, and if we don't do it right, we know what's going to happen thereafter. So we've put everything in place for that.
I don't want us to finish off everything, this conversation today.
No.
We're going to reserve a little bit of this conversation till Monday. We're going to be live there at the listing on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you'll be the one hosting me.
Yes, I will be at that time. Thank you
on Monday, live from FMDQ OTC Securities Exchange. So you do have a very a great weekend. I'm sure it's going to be busy, crossing the T's and dotting the I's for July 17th listing on FMDQ OTC Securities Exchange. Thank you very much for being here. Ononuju Ruku, who is the Managing Director at Chapel Hill Denham Management.